Revolutionary greetings, comrades. We hope you are fine wherever you are. You recall that we have been talking about the unity within the African continent or unity amongst Africans. And we said we need to build this unity at our regional level. We need to start at our regional level if we want to achieve unity in our continent. Those before us have called for one Africa. We have one African president, one cabinet, one national anthem, one flag, one currency for all of us in Africa. We have spoken to the challenges that this is not easy to achieve. So the first step, as we said, was that we need to build this unity within the regions. We've discussed what East Africa has done in terms of managing its migration, where people within those countries in East Africa do not require to carry passports whenever they travel, but they simply carry their national identity cards. In some countries, we still have a serious challenge, and this challenge in the main is caused by the collapsed economies in neighboring countries to an extent that migration becomes one way. And we have spoken about rebuilding our economies, the industrialization of the entire continent, so that migration should not be one way down, to an extent that you then have anti-migrant sentiments in certain countries. This, by the way, is not new. We saw it in Ivory Coast in the 1960s. I think we spoke about it, where even Fanon spoke about this when he was observing events in Ivory Coast when Ivory Coast gained her independence, where he had said in a country where there's high influx or high concentration of migrants, a country that is not performing economically, citizens of that country tend to turn their anger against the migrants. You will recall how when Ivory Coast gained her independence, the people of Sudan were treated in Ivory Coast. So it's not a new thing. But because it is not a new thing, we should not then fold our arms and say, look, this thing happened before, it has to continue happening. No, it has to come to a stop. But we'll continue elaborating on this point in future videos. But we want to congratulate the president of Namibia and the president of Botswana for the proposal that they've put on the table. We understand that it is still under discussion. What they've done demonstrate unity between the peoples of Namibia and the peoples of Botswana. They have said, which we understand it's a proposal which is likely to see the end of the day, the light at the end of the day, that the people of Namibia and Botswana, whenever they visit the two countries, they do not require to carry passports. You simply pick up your national identity document and cross the border to either of the two countries. This is a welcome development. It is progressive in that it builds, cements unity between the two countries, something that we need. But we know that Botswana and Namibia, economically, they are stable. There is no influx of citizens of one country to the other for employment opportunities. You will not have the challenges that, say, Zimbabwe and South Africa have, or Mozambique and South Africa. But in Namibia, these are stable economies. Even if the people there will not use passports to visit each other, only carrying national identity documents, which we carry in our different countries. Remember that the law in almost our countries is that when you move around in your country, you must carry something that identifies you, which is a national identity. I remember some years back, I was still at school in Makokova, that is a working class suburb in Bulawayo. I was stopped by the police. They asked for my ID stupa, and I was like, what the hell? Why would you ask me for a stupa? And with confrontation, because I couldn't understand. Look, I was from the village visiting the city. I get to the city, I get asked, I get asked an ID in Makokova, in my country of birth. I told them that, look, you don't have to do that to me. But the reality is that we are required to carry our identity documents in our countries, different countries. So what Namibia and Botswana then do is that you simply cross to each of the two countries using your identity. That is progressive. And they will also not, in the case of Zimbabwe, and probably some other countries, but in particular Zimbabwe, a passport has become a source of revenue for the government of Zimbabwe. The passport is the most expensive in the region, 120 US dollars. It just came down now because there's this new passport which is now 120 US dollars, 120 over around 1,700 rands, 1,600, 1,700 rands, I think. I did not do the calculation, but previously it went up to 200 US dollars. I think when I renewed my passport, that was in 2017. I paid close to 4,000, I think. I can't remember, but I think I paid close to 4,000 rands when I was renewing my passport in Zimbabwean passport in 2017. So a passport in Zimbabwe has become a source of revenue. And a passport in Zimbabwe is now the most sought after document in Zimbabwe. And the reasons being, not that people want to go and live in Botswana. Previously discussed the issue of granting special permits, where we're saying Botswana should consider granting special permits to Zimbabweans. And subsequently, I had a radio interview with a station in Haveron where we discussed this broadly with a journalist in Botswana. In the main, Zimbabweans cross to Botswana, cross to South Africa, either to sell whatever they want to sell or to buy for resale back in Zimbabwe. So there's a perception that the majority of Zimbabweans, when they come here, they want to stay. That is in South Africa and Botswana. It is not correct. This is why I think it was last week, we were asked by a journalist. The journalist was at the port of entry, was saying there are Zimbabweans that are going back to Zimbabwe using the undesignated exit point from South Africa to Zimbabwe, but they are being turned back by the police, and the journalist wanted to know our views on that. So that demonstrated that these people will have came in the morning to do their businesses in Mosina, and they're returning back in Zimbabwe. They have no intention of staying, but just because they might not have a passport, because the passport is expensive, or they've been declared undesirable because they always come up and down to an extent that they overstay, then they are declared undesirable, and then but they want to come and buy stuff, they end up crossing using illegal routes. So it's something that social scientists should pay attention to, study, to say, why is it that you have Zimbabweans crossing the border in the morning. I'm recording this video in the morning, and I bet that the queue is longer going into South Africa as opposed to going to Zimbabwe. And in the evening, the queue will be longer going to Zimbabwe as opposed to coming to South Africa. So this is something that must be looked into, where our social scientists, those that do research, should conduct a research on this issue, because it will then inform policymakers to say, no, we're having it all wrong. If you simply say Zimbabweans and South Africans, you do not need a passport. Just carry your identity document and cross to Messina and the shop, or cross to Bedbridge if you're a South African. Maybe if you want to go fishing that side, you come back. You will then eliminate all these illegal crossing that happens, because the majority do not want to come and stay. And the Zimstats, which is scientific, has proven all of us wrong, that in fact there are few Zimbabweans that are in South Africa. But we'll discuss some other time. But it's something that to be considered, to say the majority of Zimbabweans that are crossing to South Africa, they are not coming here to stay. The majority of people crossing to Botswana, they are not going there to stay. They simply want to buy products for resale in Zimbabwe, because the economy in Zimbabwe is informal. So in an informal economy, people buy products. I was sitting, when I was in Bulawayo in August, one industrialist in Bulawayo, and was saying to me, one of the challenges that they have is that people bring through illegal routes goods, be it building material, utensils, which they manufacture in Zimbabwe. And now they have to compete with people that are bringing these goods through illegal means. So, but if you then create this conducive environment where you say, just pick up your Zimbabwean ID, go to Musina or Polokwane, buy whatever you want, you go back. Because this is what generally people do. You are only having your ID, you are coming to buy stuff in Musina, in Polokwane, in Makado, you go back. Right, that's what the majority people do. Even if you go to whether Park Station in Johannesburg or a number of bus terminals, every day, the buses are full of people that are going back to Zimbabwe. Right, because if indeed Zimbabweans were actually coming to stay in South Africa, these buses will not be full. It's a weekend, so lots of people came to do shopping. They have gone back to Zimbabwe, or they are on their way back to Zimbabwe. So this must be understood, that when people are being chased along the illegal entry point, in the main, they are not coming to stay. They are simply coming to buy goods for resale in Zimbabwe. Of course, there are some that then come to want to look for better employment opportunities and so forth. But as we are concluding, congratulations to the presidents in Botswana and Namibia. Let's continue to have this conversation as part of building African unity, because we cannot talk of building African unity when we continue chasing each other. So please, we want to hear your views. What do you think? The next video, we are going to talk about liberation movements. And the title of the video will be The African National Congress as a Good Story to Tell. Watch out for that video. I know most South Africans who come to my YouTube channel to make comments, they say the ANC must lose elections in 2024. But look out for this video. I'm finalizing my research. Title to be titled African National Congress as a Good Story to Tell. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Click that notification button so that when I upload the video, titled African National Congress as a good story to tell, you'll be the first one to see it. Otherwise, Amandla, comrades.